This is going to be the back nine of Grand Bear. We'll start off with a par four, 354 yards. So if we've got a bunker starting here on the right, by the way, at roughly 160 yards. If you happen to go over that, you need 200 and let's call it 210, 211 to carry. If you hit your tee shot roughly 216 yards and the bunker is not coming into play, it's going to leave you about 130 yards left into the green. For you long hitters, 235 is going to will put you past. Basically, you'll run through the fairway. If you remember on this hole, this has a lot of elevation change coming from the left to the right. If I remember right, this kind of drops down, and this is a fairly low bunker that you got to kind of climb out of. But if we'll put it at 231, leaving us about 119 yards into the green. And if we do that and change our settings here, let's put that at a 20-foot dispersion. You can put it on the green at about 120 yards. Um, there's often times where we wind up in this in the short grass over here on the left side of the fairway. We've got this bunker. If memory serves me right, again, this is going to be you're going to be hitting up out of this bunker because I think this is below the green. If memory serves me right, um, because this is kind of a pretty substantial hill dropping from the left to the right. But again, about 120 yards going to put you on the green pretty safe. Taking a look at the green, pretty consistent going from left to right. Obviously steeper there on the far left. We looks like we've got a 3.4 up at the top of 4.7. Slope backs off. Very few, and well, only looks like three collection areas, but pretty small. This is again going primarily from left to right, and that gets pretty steep if you happen to clear the bunker and hit that area of the green. That's going to get pretty steep. So that's what you're looking at, except here for this little area on the right, the very front of the green, which is going to run off, further off the front of the green. So that's what you're looking at on that one. So hole number 11 is a par five, 475 yards. We have this very large bunker here on the right side of the fairway, starting at about 160 yards, and you need 235, 232 to carry it. If you happen to go to the right, if you go to the center of the fairway, um, that's what you're looking at about 215, leaving about 259 into the green at 236, leaves you about 237 into the green. If we drop our pin there, our second shot, um, before you got going to have about 213 yards in before these bunkers start coming into play, which would leave you 24 in. Fairly wide dispersion. If we want to play conservatively, and our numbers say don't, but if we hit it 180 yards without having any change to our strokes gained, which is if you see the 180 yards, if you look below where it says number one, this is your landing in the fairway and your strokes gained is zero across the board. The closer we get, your strokes gained increases, which means you're going to do better than average. And the further back, you start seeing these negatives, which means you're going to do worse. But if we get right at 181 yards, leaving us 56 yards into the green, that puts us at a pretty good place. So if we drop a pin there, and now we're looking at our approach, leaving only 52 yards. So we're going to have a very tight, very small dispersion. Let me kind of shrink this so we can get a better look at the green. So about the center of the green is looking at about 60 yards, taking all the bunkers out of play. You do have this large bunker here on the left, smaller bunker here on the right. Pretty safe to go long if you need to, taking a look at the green. For the most part, just again, generalization, it's going to go from the back to the front. Very small collection areas. Steepest part is going to be over here on the right, kind of at this, at the angle here where we've got 7.2, and it's going to be I guess for the most part, going to be running to the to the front of the green and then off to the right. Our next hole, hole number 12, par four, 402 yards. Pretty wide fairway. If we put it at 213, that's leaving us with 191 into the green. If we jump that up to 235, leaves us at 174. I'm going to back this down. Excuse me, y'all. I'm sorry. I've got a tickle in my throat. We'll drop our pin there, and then we will take a look at our approach shot. You got 185 in. So actually, I'm going to change the look of this and say that would be a hybrid for me, which gives us a pretty wide dispersion here. So bunkers are coming into play all the way around, because that's going to be pretty tough from an approach standpoint. If we do change this to a 50-foot dispersion, for those of you who can hit an iron this far, I'm probably looking at trying to take an iron more at about 170 yards to this area, and then do what I can to get an up and down. So we drop a pin there, and then we've got a very small dispersion, just chip in. So let's change and look at our greens. Again, we've got some directions going here. If you start at the top of the green, it's going to feed toward the bottom and then make a pretty hard turn left to right, a little collection area there at the top. The further toward the front of the green we get, the more it's going to change, get a little steeper there in the center here at 5.5, and feed toward the front of the green, to maybe a small collection area there at the bottom of the very front of the green. But again, you look at this, we've got bunkers. So again, if we take this out and we look at the green, um, we've got the bunkers on both sides. All right, so moving to the hole number 13. It is a par four, 308 yards. We've got this little bunker on the left that's going to start at 180 yards. You need about 100, or let's call it 202 yards to clear that bunker. We're going to leave you 102 yards in. But again, if we hit it at 215, if you will look, the dispersion gets pretty tight. So let's zoom in on this at 215. Your dispersion gets pretty tight. And this is a relatively short par four. So, maybe a smarter play. Um, we're just going to kind of change some things around here. Actually, let me go back to this and do this. So let's say a smarter play, maybe a 5 iron, maybe a hybrid, keeps you short of that bunker, puts you in the fairway at, let me see if I can back this up just a touch. So let's say we get to about 175 yards. It's leaving you 131 yards in. And again, we're in the green here on our strokes gained. We're in the fairway. Not a bad play on hole number 13. So then we drop our pin here. Let's look at our approach. We've got 100, we said 130 yards in. It's even if we bump this out, let's be conservative on this and say our dispersion is 30 foot. You got a pretty good landing area. I mean, yeah, you've got your bunker here on the left. You've got another one really that doesn't seem to come into play much unless you're going to be aggressive on your second shot. Or let me rephrase that. If you're going to be aggressive on your first shot, and then maybe this is going to have to, if you're going to try to get to I mean, maybe drive the green or something. Because again, we're looking at 308 yards. This is about 100 yards out. So I mean, that's a 200 and I mean, let's call it a 208-yard drive. These things can come into play if you're going to try to drive the green. We can put it here on the green, taking a look at the green. Um, Generalization again, for the most part, we're going left to right, kind of small collection areas. This is going to be a relatively steep green. We've got 8.3 up here at the top center, and then you got 4.6, fairly small collection areas. Um, so yeah, for the most part, we're going to be going left to right on this particular green. So that's hole number 13. Take a look at hole number 14. Excuse me. We've got us a par three. Um, let's take a look at this. We remember this hole because this is the water hole, and then we've got somewhere over here is the restroom right there. So we're looking at about 163 yards in. So if we bump this up, puts us 160 yards into the center of the green with an approach shot from the tee box. Taking a look at the green, um, this is a pretty consistent back to front on the green. Is if you remember, this is a relatively flat. I mean, it's got some break, obviously. Up to 2.9 here in this green area, 5.3 over here. But I think for Ben, again, I'm not trying to single you out here, but I mean, we've played this hole. This is the one that water comes into play with this creek bed right there. Okay, so now going to hole 15, par five. Um, if we back this out, not seeing any real trouble. Um, well, I say that. We've got whatever this is. I really don't remember what that is. But we've got that at about 115 yards. So getting a little wider look here. Let's say we hit 215. That's going to leave us 291 in. Still looking good as far as our strokes gains right there. And if we bump this out to 236, leaving us about 270 into the green. Some of y'all may be able to put that on in two. I'm not even going to think about it. Um, and I do want to point out here we're looking at the top right corner, it says from tee. The average for a 20 handicap is going to be 6.06 strokes to get it in the hole. So this is a bogey hole for most 20 handicappers. So if we hit it at 236, I'm going to back that off. Let's say 225, leaving us 281 into the green. We're going to put a pin in it. Um, Now we're looking at, again, fairly wide dispersion. Let's say I'm going to back this off to about 205, 204. If you get a hold of a good three wood, if you hit it a little longer, say, 213, for example. Anyway, you're looking at a wedge into the green. So let's put a pin there. And now let's look at our approach. You've got bunkers here on the right, bunkers on the front left. So the front is pretty protected. You've got this little pot bunker back here on the back left. Nothing in the back of the green, so you're pretty safe there. But for the most part, I mean, if you're 70, 80 yards out, you've got a pretty good area here to shoot at. Taking a look at our green, again, we've got a pretty good sized collection area here in the top center. And as you can see, it basically everything then flows away from that collection area, which is a little weird since you got a little steeper. What this tells me actually is that this is probably a higher elevation here in the collection area, even though it's flat. It's still higher, and then you're going to have things start peeling off the green. And then as you go toward the front of the green, we're going to be, we're going the the slope goes toward the green. We've got this little collection area right here, and then it rolls off the front of the green. Again, you can see a little bit in the maps here the bunkers coming into play. Taking a look at our next hole, hole number 16, par 3. So let's drop this into approach mode. Um, if I seem to remember this hole, again, we've got water way over here. We hope it doesn't come into play. Bunkers over here guarding the left. Pretty wide open over here on the right if you're going to miss the green. And you've got probably a good 9 iron. Logan, you're probably hitting a pitching wedge. Um, maybe even up to an 8 iron if you don't think you can get your 9 iron. If you're going to have to put too much into the 9 iron, but that gets you on the green. Taking a look at the green again, the front of the green, the front half of the green looks like it's sloping toward the front, maybe the front right, where the back of the green, the back half, is going to be sloping to the left, which somewhat makes sense because that's where the water's going. And then you've got these bunkers guarding the front left. Hole number 17, par 4, 370 yards. If we put this at about there's 216. Again, we do have the water. I remember this hole as well. We do have the water over on the left, but we have pretty wide open, pretty forgiving over here on the right. 216 leaves you 150 in. Get to 235, leaving you about 131 in. So let's get us 225. Looks good. We drop the pin in it. Excuse me, y'all. I apologize. We got 132 yards into the center of the green. Um, we can back off that dispersion a little bit. Let's put it right there. So even at the biggest dispersion, the bunker, you can easily take the bunker out of play by just aiming toward the front right or even the back right, depending on pin placement. Where you're going to get into a challenge is if from this angle, or any other angle for that matter, if the pin is in the back left, they're daring you to go over that bunker. Taking a look at the green, pretty consistent sloping from the back of the green to the front. Not terrible as far as the slopes here. So yeah, that's where you're at. So short answer is if you hit it toward the front of the green, you've got a nice uphill putt going toward the back of the green, depending on where the flag is placed. Last hole of the day is our par 4, hole 18, 401 yards. We do have this bunker over here starting at 184, and if you get a little too far right, you need about 100. Let's call it 209 to clear it. But at 215 will leave us 176 in. Let me zoom in a little bit for you. That puts us at 215 right there. And at 235, you're looking at about 156 yards in. So let's back that up, kind of hit halfway at 225, drop a pin in it. And now we're looking at approach. To get to the center of the green here, you're looking at about 166 yards. That's going to be a solid, for me, that's a 5 iron. I mean, I'm probably looking at, stretching it about 170 on a 5 iron. So, I mean, this is um, maybe a 6 iron. You do have this bunker over here, starting at about 144, that could, come into play, obviously. Fairly safe over here on the left. You got the cart path, as you can see, but fairly safe. If I remember correctly, this green is going to slope from back to front, but we'll take a look at that now. And yeah, so we're sloping back to front, pretty steep here in the center. Got this little collection area to the front of the green. and here toward the back of the green before we wind up in this bunker. But as you can see, pretty for a generalization, we're back to front here, or back left to front right, getting us toward those toward the bunker. All right, fellas, that is our preview of the Grand Bear course for the Magnolia, and we will see you in a couple of weeks.